And we're live. There we are. Welcome back, Citonauts. Today we have a cool panel, in fact, about NFTs in Cosmos and an ongoing hackathon, the Game of NFTs hackathon. And I'm joined by a literal star panel in the Cosmos ecosystem. So we do have Mike in the house, who is a bridge engineer over at Stargaze. Welcome, Mike. How are you?
How's it going?
Then we have Sitla, who has been a frequent guest on my channel, especially recently with the Flix launch and Flix drop that's coming up. Co-founder over at Omniflix. Sitla, how is it going?
Hey, it's going great. How are you, Zico?
Very good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm actually a bit tired. It's already late here, but nevertheless, it's going to be a very productive session. I also see people joining in the stream. Guys, drop your questions. We're going to get back on that towards the end of the stream. And we also have Jehan, who's also been on the channel multiple times, core engineer, and also the main person, I guess, that built replicated security on the Cosmos Hub. So we're also going to be talking about how that all fits together. NFTs in Cosmos, the hackathon, and shared security that just went live. Jehan, welcome back to the channel.
Yeah, thanks.
So I think it would be cool if we can start maybe with a little bit of a general case for NFTs in Cosmos, right? I think Cosmos is very strong on the DeFi side. You know, we have Osmosis, we have a lot of DeFi protocols, Injective, we have also DYDX coming up. I think on the DeFi side, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I think people, especially outside of Cosmos, they underappreciate and maybe even have underexplored NFTs in Cosmos, right? So maybe first question for let's start with Sitla. Can you make the case for NFTs in Cosmos? Why it's a big thing, and why you also with Omniflix basically chose in the first case to build an NFT platform on Cosmos?
Yeah, sure. In some sense, NFTs represent culture. More from a technical standpoint, if fungible assets are all fungible, non-fungible assets are unique. And this is this is at the core and is more of a primitive to how blockchains work, or in general databases work. And that object got its popularity around 2017 on the Ethereum blockchain, 2017-18 on Solana, and again and on multiple other blockchains, and even in general with chains like Flow. Especially in the Cosmos, NFTs were not really focused on until 4 or 5 teams actually started working on NFTs. And we have again various ways in which NFTs are represented, be it the native NFTs, be it the Cosmos NFTs, and there is more tooling that is being built. So the case for NFTs in Cosmos, of course, to be able to one, have fun, also to be able to make sure that this primitive of a unique object is utilized not only within, say, DeFi, but also to be able to power real world applications. So solving real problems. So in our sense, specifically with Omniflix, we chose Cosmos because of its sovereignty, because of its architecture, and because of all that it has offered, right, natively or with Cosmos, and of course with IBC and the interchain nature of interchain default interoperable, or I should say interchain default or interchain native infrastructure of Cosmos. So those were our reasons, and we're pushing it forward within, specifically starting off with media and then moving on to other industries like, say, gaming or events and so on and so forth.
Yeah, maybe Mike, can you share from your perspective? Obviously, Stargaze, in my opinion, also has one of the best user experiences out there. There's really amazing creators on it, right? Same for Omniflix, but I think Stargaze is also home to the bad kids, and after the filter, like you guys already have some great creators onboarded. So can you maybe share what do you think maybe also people outside of Cosmos are maybe not aware what is happening with NFTs in Cosmos?
I think firstly the community. So the energy behind the community, people are not aware. Say like the bad kids community. And also perhaps the tools that are being built in Cosmos, such as ICS-721, and kind of the interoperability of NFTs that is not really seen as much outside Cosmos.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we're talking also right now, is because there is an ongoing initiative, which is the Game of NFTs. That is a hackathon that should also onboard new projects, I guess, and also more builders and developers. And there's different tracks, right? So I think today is specialized on the Cosmos Hub track. That's why we also have Jehan in the house. I don't know who wants to take this, but maybe can you provide a high-level overview of that initiative, like how it started, what's the purpose, and where do we currently stand?
Mike, I think.
Yes.
Maybe Mike, you start.
Yeah. So regarding Game of NFTs, right? So kind of like so ICS-721, we've been working on this for a while, and it was originally kind of IrisNet that developed the protocol spec. Stargaze came in and developed the CosmWasm implementation. IrisNet did the SDK NFT implementation, and we were working with Gravity Bridge, and we got this idea of kind of doing kind of like where we had Game of Zones, but to do that for NFTs, so Game of NFTs. And we worked with IrisNet to raise some funding from the Atom Pool. And then for this, that was phase one. And then for phase two, each chain is kind of has their own, say, like, stars where you can get the different tracks. And in the phase one, we have just testing the security of the protocol. There's some interesting stories from that. And then in phase two, people are developing actual applications and tools that can be used with ICS-721.
Maybe Sisla, you can share your views on and your involvement also with Omniflix and the initiative.
Yeah, definitely. As Mike mentioned, we were also first part of the Discord channel that was on the Gravity Bridge Discord server, and we went ahead, coordinated or rather collaborated with teams, or rather I'll say we were part of it initially and followed along. And when around January or like December, January, when Game of NFTs was being discussed, we were very excited, having been part of events like Game of Stakes, Game of Zones, Game of Change as well. We wanted to see this happen for NFTs as well, and for people to hack away on the infrastructure and build some really interesting, useful tooling. And I'll say, yeah, the efforts went very well, coordinated, by Iris Network, and they went above and beyond to make sure all of this happened with the proposals, with the interactions with multiple teams, the independent calls with multiple teams, helping them understand what was happening. And we had few collaborations or collaborators on the way as well, in the form of Juno, in the form of Osmosis, Arc Protocol, and some of the others that were in general helping out. And this made sure that the hackathon was put together, that both the phases, phase one and phase two. Phase one primarily involved multiple teams being able to try out the entire protocol, the modules, the contracts, on Stargaze, Juno, the native module on Omniflix, Iris, and Optic. So this was the effort that went into the first half of the, or being able to put together the first half of the Game of NFTs, right? Like the event. If that was one, we had people like Empower Chain, Disperse, again, Arc Protocol, all of these guys that built tooling. Omniflix also contributed with an interface for Game of NFTs. We first started off with Iris, then Stargaze. We built a UI to make sure that NFTs were able to, you could create NFTs as well as transfer them just using the UI. It was a developer first experience. Personally, I didn't utilize the command line to interact with ICS-721 or the NFT transfer modules myself. So went ahead and got this product done. And even during the proposal phase, we observed a lot of the Cosmos community members actually, I'll say, mention that this was only for developers. How can we normal people actually access this entire tooling and participate? So just for that, although it was not like incentivized, we went ahead, built that UI, and that was like our first contribution to make sure all of this was like visual and tangible enough for people to understand. The second part is about the hackathon and the challenges, and we see. So we went ahead with something much more generic, something that's not a marketplace, but say utilize DeFi, Cosmos, and ICS in and the ICS-721 protocol. That was like our challenge. It was much more generic. Stargaze, I think, has an excellent challenge that actually captures the utility, and we'll soon implement Cosmos on Omniflix too. So we are very excited to see all that's being built in the hackathon.
Yeah. And yeah, Mike, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so I was just going to mention, so like I said, this has been in development since November 2021, which was when the spec first came out with Iris. And I recently gave a talk in Hong Kong at a Web3 festival. Actually, finally got to meet IrisNet IRL, which is pretty fun. And it's interesting because it's a community effort, right? So we have multiple chains working on this, but in addition, it's also international efforts. So it's kind of like very, very true to the core, something that's supposed to be flexible and used by lots of different people.
Yeah, I think that's also in the true Cosmos spirit, out collaborating the competition and just sovereign teams. In the end of the day, still being aligned and working together on these things. Maybe Jehan, can you share a little bit about at what point does Cosmos have shared security? When does all that come in, and what is the development been so far on that end?
Well, I mean, yeah, in general or in relation to this hackathon?
Yeah, I mean, in relationship to the hackathon, like, is there any projects so far that's been submitted that are potentially exploring using shared security of the hub, or?
We haven't. I don't think we've reviewed the submitted projects yet. But the track for the Cosmos Hub is if you have an NFT project that uses replicated security, or possibly if it's built, if it's intended to be built on Neutron, which is using replicated security. So that's what we're going to be focusing on for the Cosmos Hub track. I think. Well, one project, I don't know if this qualifies, but one project when I spoke to one of the organizers from IrisNet, I forgot his name right now, but he was working on a project for an NFT lending protocol, which could be a replicated security consumer chain. So, for us, it's not really necessarily about specific features of how it deals with the NFTs or anything, but it's if you're doing something that requires a high level of security and you think it might work well as a consumer chain or to be launched on a consumer chain, that's what we'll be looking at.
Yeah, I think I also saw a tweet recently. I think it was from Shane, co-founder of Stargaze, that Stargaze is also like technically open to exploring a migration to become a Atom secured zone, similar to what Stride is doing right now. They're an existing app chain, have real users, activity, volumes, all these kind of things, and they're now migrating into an Atom zone, basically. So yeah, maybe Mike, you can share, like, is that something you guys are like seriously considering, and what would be the trade-offs? What would be the thought process behind making that attempt to potentially migrate?
Yeah, so we're currently evaluating multiple options, and kind of like the one that you just mentioned is one of them. And we'll be following the example of either Stride or Neutron for this. And the trade-offs obviously is the sovereignty versus having that larger amount of security. And I think right now we're leaning towards the security aspect, the shared security, and yeah, we're still in the evaluation process.
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously, yeah, Jen.
I was going to say, Stride is blazing the trail because the process of transitioning the chain from being a standalone chain to a consumer chain has not been tested yet. I mean, it's been tested like in tests, but never been done in real life. And I guess, Neutron blazed the trail for even having real life consumer chain at all, but this is going to be, it's kind of funny that this is the very next one. It's going to be something new again, because it's actually kind of a intricate process to make sure that all the existing IBC connections stay live when it switches validator sets. So Stride is actually doing a lot of work of like proving out, that it can work. And so I think that when Stargaze comes, it'll be, if Stargaze does this, it'll be a lot smoother for Stride having gone ahead and pioneered it. So I was actually I talked with Shane a couple hours ago, and he was like, "Yeah, we really want to see how Stride goes first." So
yeah, honestly, like we just had a spaces also with the Stride team. I think those two, Neutron and Stride, being the first ones to do that, like that's a perfect set to test it, right? Because you have one chain that goes from 0 to become an atom zone, and then you have another chain. I love how they always draw this analogy, but switching an existing L1 into a consumer chain or atom zone is like switching the engine of a plane mid-flight. So that's a big thing and big endeavor.
Yeah, we've been working with them to make a robotic arm that comes out from the wing and like grabs the engine. It's kind of complicated.
Yeah, it sounds like an engineering masterpiece, at least. Maybe Mike, can you share a little bit? Like, I mean, obviously, the security aspect is something that makes sense and that you guys are potentially exploring right now. People complaining about my eating habits here in Dubai, but what is the, like, on a product side? Like, let's talk about, we talked earlier about NFTs in Cosmos and why we think it's underappreciated. But what are some of the interesting innovations, developments, findings that you guys had with this game of NFTs on a product level that would potentially bring NFTs in Cosmos to the next level?
Yeah. So for example, so in phase 1, right? It turns out, so we actually had this contract audited before NFTs phase 1, and there was a hack that was released, and that hack actually kind of created like an infinite loop that broke down the relayers. But actually, ICS-721 itself was pretty much totally bulletproof, so it wasn't able to be hacked. So that was pretty good. And in terms of like the product, so one thing that we're working on is a thing called Outpost. So the Outpost would be where you'd be able to kind of list your NFT from another chain. So when and you'd be able to do this seamlessly and list your NFT on the Stargaze marketplace. And it kind of uses ICS-721 in the background to do the transfer of the NFT. That's one that's interesting. Say like lending and borrowing could be another use case. Things that have to do with the type of like maybe like an AMM with NFTs, like essentially like an infinity pool. And there's just kind of all these different places where you could use NFTs seamlessly with being able to move between, kind of have value move between chains.
And can you also, you just mentioned Outposts, and I talk about this quite a lot recently here on the channel. Can you talk more concretely, like, or what Stargaze's plans are deploying Outposts? Like, what chains are you looking at? What makes sense? And also, like, for a user perspective, like if I'm an NFT guy, I love NFTs, but I just don't want to like go back and forth with IBC all the time. Like, maybe more tangible. Like, what problem does it fix for me if I'm a lazy NFT person?
Well, it really comes down to the UI, right? So if you have a seamless UI, you kind of won't even really notice that your NFT is coming from another chain. And with Outposts, like for example, we would consider putting one on Juno or putting one on Osmosis, maybe putting one on Omniflix, wherever there's an NFT marketplace. That's where essentially we're going to want to put these Outposts, and it kind of increases liquidity, right? So instead of just having the NFTs that are on Stargaze, now you're having NFTs from other chains as well. And the better that we could use the the better that we can enhance the UI, because Stargaze is all about UI. That's kind of our bread and butter. And the better that we can make that UX experience, the more that the user doesn't really need to worry about IBC. It just kind of looks like any other NFT.
Yeah, I think really the core thing is that for a user, like it basically pushes IBC a little bit in the background, right? And the UI just gets much smoother. You don't, if you just love one chain because of whatever, the logo, the branding, you just like the founders more, or the community, like you don't have to leave your favorite chain in that sense.
Exactly.
And I'm really bullish on that concept for Outpost, because it basically allows you to access products on other chains without having to manually navigate back and forth. And yeah, I see already people saying UI is huge. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest pain points, not just within Cosmos, but in all crypto, is UI. Like these things need to be as intuitive and smooth as possible. So that's why I think it's a true game changer for Cosmos UI.
Yeah, for Game of NFTs Phase 2, we just added a third challenge, and the third challenge is to build the UI that allows people to do transfer of NFTs with ICS-721. By the way, the other two challenges that we have, the first one is for gravity bridge transfers, and actually we have someone who has pretty much a working solution at this point, and the other one is for this thing called entry and exit incentives.
Sitla, can you talk maybe from an Omniflix perspective, like what are some of the things, discoveries that you guys made? Anything like on a product side? Because I don't think, since you guys also just launched a token, like exploring interchain security is maybe not on your priority list up there right now, I would assume.
We always continue to explore. We were like one of the first teams to utilize fee grant, in its shape and form, and like extract value out of that piece of code, if I can say. But at the same time, yeah, we've been looking at Neutron, Strike. We've been following all that's happening, and also, like Mike mentioned, exploring other forms of shared security as well. First, like with replicated security, trying to understand how it can work for say Strike specifically, how people can change the engine while mid-flight, right? And apart from that, we're also, like these, like with Outposts, like Mike mentioned, there are a few ways in which you can still stay sovereign and still interact with multiple other app chains or ecosystems. That is possible. So these are being considered, and in our context, right, like when it comes to NFTs, we're first dealing with media IP, and there, like, we see like a clear need for community owned media. And if that can be a use case for something like shared security, or if that is a use case for increased security, we are like 100% open to the idea. At this point in time, we still do not see the need. Going forward, like when you look at, say, interchain NFTs, not just like shared security, but infrastructure that is interoperable, quite a lot can happen with say Osmosis, or with the other DeFi protocols that are coming up. Licensing is one core use case of Omniflix, and that use case will not applies not just for media assets, but also for, say, a DeFi asset loan that can be licensed, where the potential revenue for that specific loan over a period of a month is shared with the license holder or something like that. So all of these use cases are applicable, and these are the use cases that we're looking at to be able to solve. So some of these are problems that exist already and are paradigms that did not open up yet. Some of these are non-existent problems, so we're focused on the ones that already exist. And traditional media faces a lot of problems when it comes to rights reconciliation. So along with interoperability, interchain NFTs, we are also solving that problem, and bridging the gap and checking out or exploring how things work.
There's people already shilling some collections. So maybe interesting question. What are your guys' favorite collections? maybe Mike, you can start. Like, what's your favorite collection on Stargaze, and then what's your favorite collection outside of Stargaze?
So outside of Stargaze, Miladies. Gotta love the Miladies.
Yeah, Elon just made a tweet about them, right? Like a couple of days ago. Like, it's not a meme or something like that.
And obviously everyone loves Bad Kids, but I also like the Stargaze Punks as well.
Stargaze Punks. Do you know all of these? Somebody was saying Kiwis, Cosmos Killer Bob, Pixel Wizards.
Oh yeah, Pixel Wizards. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. How many collections are there right now on Stargaze? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's definitely in the hundreds or thousands. Yeah.
Nice. And then Sisla, what is your favorite NFT collection on Omniflix and then also outside?
All right. On Omniflix, it has to be tardigrades and IBC game NFTs. So interplanetary battle cards, both at the same level in that sense, because like tardigrades and team have built a solid community. Even at Cosmos, they were pretty fun. And they're like they're always staying relevant with the latest Cosmos trends that happen. I think there was a collaboration with Joe as well, who was on Stargaze. That collaboration happened, and IBC game, because like they went ahead and used an Excel sheet and trading cards and like created like an entire game with 5 tournaments, right? Like that happened. Pretty bullish on what they're doing and their community. It's a tight knit one, strong one with people strategizing, and outside Cosmos. Uh, my preference is a bit biased because I've been involved in those communities, and I really like the Clonex community, primarily because of their ability to utilize their NFTs, license them out, make sure that they have their limitations, of course, but at the same time, they have quite the utility when it comes to how NFTs are being utilized, and they're pioneering that distribution model. So I like them for that.
We also have the Pixel Wizards in the chat, by the way, and they're saying 1,365 collections on Stargaze. That's a nice number. By the way, Jehan, I think you are guilty of being a bad kids maxi. Is that right?
Yeah, I was actually one of the first people who was in the Bad Kids. Because I was in the Stargaze Discord before Stargaze launched, I believe, and there were all these different sub channels, whatever you call it, on Discord with all the collections. I was looking back at the Discord now, and I guess they removed those, but I was just going through them all, and I came across the Bad Kids one. I was like, holy shit, this is really cool, because it's like they have a very distinctive sort of artistic style. Well, obviously the whole badly drawn gimmick, like nobody was doing that, and then also it's just kind of like pretty well put together in the way all the features combine and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. I was actually doing my own NFT, and
now it comes out.
Yeah,
you're undercover NFT artist.
Because it wasn't very successful. But basically, it was like it was called Deep Gems. I did it on Ethereum actually, and the Ethereum high gas prices really killed it. But also I never really promoted it how it should have been. So, but basically, it was this thing where I actually trained an AI, a GAN. It's like the last generation of AI before Midjourney and stuff came out. And you have to train them. They only can make one specific type of image. You can't type in anything you want. You have to train them on what you want, the image you want them to make. And so, I actually went and I got like thousands of pictures of gems off of like jewelry wholesaling websites, and I trained the GAN on them. And so I had this GAN that could like output, like basically it would take a random, like a number, basically like the sequence number of the NFT or whatever, and then output a gem for that number, and it'd be the same, the same gem each time. And so I was kind of doing that, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this on Stargaze and stuff. And then I kind of came across Bad Kids, and I was like, wait a second, this is like way better. This is way better than mine. And then the other thing is the thing with AI NFTs. I'm not going to get on a tangent here, but basically what happened is that I was using like this old generation of AI, and like the current AI now, it's like way better. And so it's almost like it almost sort of like stole the wind from like the sales of like GAN based stuff, because now, you know, but I almost think the AI are almost like it's sort of, it has made it a lot more about the concept than the art quality. I think Bad Kids is like this great concept. So, yeah.
And these Bad Kids, they even evolved, right? So every Bad Kids holder got Bit Kits, I think it's called, airdropped. And now there's even another collection, which I also really liked. And I'm also guilty of aping in, which is the After the Filter. I think it's also a cool one. But yeah, I think also, you know, like both Stargaze and you know, Omniflix, you guys, what I really like that you guys have done is you have this core community of creators that are native to the platform and that have built cool stuff, right? Like the tardigrades on Omniflix, the Bad Kids on Stargaze. I think that's very Cosmos native. Like that's very unique in that sense, right? It's not a copy paste thing, you know, like you see in most other ecosystems. So I think it's really cool. And Jehan, since you just mentioned like you were doing stuff with NFTs on Ethereum, can you maybe explain from a like technical point of view for any creator out there that is maybe even watching this video and thinks like, man, I want to do something Cosmos. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know why to start. So what's the case for building an NFT project or a collection in Cosmos over Ethereum, for example?
Well, it depends. I think one of the things, what I was doing was very was kind of very sophisticated. My NFT involved probably over-engineered, to be honest. It involved a bonding curve and stuff. I actually you could basically,
all you needed is memes. All you need is memes.
I know. No. So it was like you could have these tokens which would make your gem when you generate it. It would be like more and more like glitched out or something. Basically, it was cool. But in any case, one of the things that killed me though was the gas costs on Ethereum. And so on Cosmos in general, it's a lot cheaper. And not only because Ethereum gets a lot more use, but like also just Cosmos scales better, so it will probably remain cheap. So that enables you to do things where you can maybe building cooler things if there is a technical aspect to what you're doing. And then also I think just on Cosmos we see these great platforms like Stargaze and Omniflix, and I think that they have like really good UX, and it's better certainly than the UX of any decentralized things on Ethereum. And also I think honestly better than the UX of something like OpenSea. And I think that that's something that Cosmos allows. It has the performance and kind of hackability and sort of programmability that enables people, like Mike and Sitla to create great experiences on their platforms. So those would be the two things for me. I think when I go back to Ethereum and I love writing Solidity, actually. I like the language, but when I go back and use stuff on Ethereum, I got to, open a MetaMask, and it's always some kind of glitch going on, and stuff. And so it's like, you forget how good it is really. The UX tends to be on Cosmos. Everything's very fast and responsive. And
you're priced out basically, right?
Yeah, I spent a huge, on my NFT project, I spent a huge amount of time optimizing like the gas, and there's all like these little tricks you do and stuff like that. It's like you gotta and this stuff is also built into frameworks on Ethereum, like the Open Zeppelin, or I forget what it's called. There's different NFT frameworks, but they build these tricks in. But there's many tricks that people develop, like where you have a thing where someone can like mint the NFT, but it's not like really minted, but at least they can mint it, and then they pay extra to like go through a second step, which costs more gas, so they can actually transfer it. And it's all this stuff you have to do just to reduce gas costs for people. And in Cosmos, it's just not really an issue.
And then just Pepe comes around and gets everybody wrecked times 100 with fees. Sitla, you had anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean,
unmuting.
I echo to Jehan's point around the UX. If someone has to build anything with respect to NFTs on within the Cosmos ecosystem, not just on Omniflix or Stargaze, but in general, right? It has to be the UX, because moving assets, like fungible assets across ecosystems, is like the easiest here. And once someone gets used to this, they'd feel like, yeah, you'd have to like put a knife through someone's heart to be able to use other solutions. So the UX, definitely, even in our case, has enabled multiple fungible tokens like Atom, Osmo, Juno, Huawei, AKT to move on to Omniflix even before the token. And that has led to an interesting, way to launch. And, yeah, I think this was something that is extremely native to Cosmos, and it wouldn't have been possible anywhere else.
There's the suggestion to evolve bad kids into bad teens, maybe. Good idea. There's also a question, maybe that's something for you, Mike. Pixel Wizards. Actually, I don't know about interactive NFTs. Can you maybe explain that?
So Stargaze has the ability to have dynamic NFTs. So they're NFTs where the kind of the metadata is evolving, and that's kind of like what an interactive NFT would be, that it's able to be responsive.
But can you give an example, like when I transfer it to someone else, or does it change, or what can you do precisely?
So for example, like let's say that there's kind of like a seed value, right, that changes as it's being transferred. So maybe something that's like an egg that's like hatching, and it's like evolving as every time that it gets transferred.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think that's a lot of cool stuff going on. I also saw a very good question actually from Galat at ICA in terms of onboarding real world assets, right? Because NFTs are more than art pieces, digital art. So what are your thoughts on that? And I don't know if there's anything going on with, in the context of Game of NFTs. But yeah, I don't know who wants to take that first, Mike or Sitla, Jehan, whoever.
I can speak to it. It's a little out of left field, but it's this is something we've always talked about with so Althea, my former startup, still going. It's like a bandwidth decentralized ISP network, and it's also the team that's building Gravity Bridge, which is probably where most people in Cosmos know them from. But basically, one thing that would be really useful in various ways in our networks is actually turning network equipment into NFTs. So like routers and radio equipment and switches and stuff like that. So like, and this is like, big network equipment that's used, outside to create the internet basically. That would be cool because then you could have like sort of fractional ownership of these pieces of equipment, and then also with Althea be able to get fees from that as well. So that's a real world use case that's sort of near and dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. The other thing I've thought about also is wouldn't necessarily be NFTs, but just the concept of having bonds. Probably you could fractionalize a bond, so it wouldn't actually be an NFT. But that's, to me, I think that's what's most promising in crypto is bringing it and hooking it into the real world and bringing the programmability that you have to real assets.
Sitla, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, real world assets, like with Omniflix, like when we say we're dealing with media, IP, and licensing, I do not know if that is like a real world asset or not, but it's definitely not a crypto native asset, in the traditional context. So those are, that is a use case that is like actually solvable right now. We are just in the process of building that infra, and like Cosmos definitely, due to that sovereignty, has a lot of potential for these to go private, because like, yeah, in the real world, some things are not like done publicly, right? And you'll need privacy for that. And for these real world deals to happen, probably on chain, like, with a DLT behind them, with a consensus behind them, there probably needs to be more ZK like solutions that can be implemented. that should be possible to implement, and more tooling around that will definitely bring on board real world assets. And very ripe for Cosmos, because we've seen multiple even the crypto native exchanges, centralized exchanges, utilizing Tendermint and Cosmos SDK for their sovereign chains. We've seen Line from Japan actually implement Tendermint, a Tendermint based chain, and multiple other use cases that we don't hear of on a daily basis because they're open, and you do not know who's actually working with them. But we've seen many implementations of Tendermint and Cosmos stack being utilized in the context of both crypto native and crypto in the crypto world, but for real world asset onboarding.
Another one that I find exciting is the idea of authenticated content. So with AI, people don't know if the content they're receiving is real content or not, and I think that we could use NFTs to authenticate that content.
Yeah, I think that's also we mentioned this earlier, the convergence of DeFi and NFTs. Can you talk like specifically what are some of the potential use cases? And maybe Mike, you can start about Stargaze. Like what are some of the things that you guys are exploring that mixes up NFTs with DeFi?
So one thing we're working on is an infinity pool, so that people will be able to kind of deposit their NFT and deposit tokens and exchange between the two. And another one could be using an NFT to kind of represent a position in an asset. So by representing the position in the asset, you could trade that kind of in a DeFi manner.
Sitla, what are you guys? What do you guys have cooking?
Yeah, I mean, for the Flix drop, like we're building something that can like take an NFT, burn it, and take the input of an NFT and output fungible tokens, right? Like that is how the Flix token will be claimed. And these can go on to represent like pools of there is the NFT as an input to FT, NFT to NFT, where additions can be minted, NFT to NFT plus FT, as an output. So these models can enable a launchpad, can act as a launchpad where a community can go ahead and first build their community with NFTs and eventually launch their fungible token, utilizing these NFTs to represent their participation. So this is a very simple example of when you ask like what's cooking at our end, but multiple use cases. DAOs can utilize, of course, like NFT DAOs can utilize DeFi infrastructure, and that needs to happen in a seamless manner, and that will not only enable like crypto native use cases, be useful for crypto native use cases, but multiple organizations, various communities, charities, NGOs, not for profits, clubs, all of these people can end up utilizing this infrastructure. And as discussed in the conversation earlier, when we go ahead and like build the UI in a way that abstracts everything out, then the end game is like pretty clear. You just got to onboard the people, and they utilize all this infrastructure without having to think about all that's happening in the background.
So yeah, let's get back to the main topic, and also give some calls to action for the community. So the Game of NFTs is still going on. As far as I understand, people can also still submit their project until June 19th. Is this correct?
Yep.
It's my
June 19th.
My birthday, by the way. So on my birthday, deadline for submissions. And yeah, what would be your final call to action? I see people in the chat. If anybody is now interested to get involved, to maybe apply to learn more, what would be your recommendation? What can they get out of it? And yeah, what's the process to get started? Maybe Jehan, you can start for like anything that's also Cosmos Hub specific for that track.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I'm not as up on the hackathon organization process as I should be, but I can speak to our criteria for judging. Yeah, as I was saying before, that's NFT projects that would be built on consumer chains, that would be that that are built on Neutron as well, which is a replicated security consumer chain. And then also, I wanted to mention that Neutron outpost. That is also, if you're using that Neutron outpost, obviously that would qualify. So that's what we're really interested in, is the intersection between replicated security and NFTs. Yeah. Oh, one thing I'll just say is that if you're building a Cosmos chain and you want to qualify for the Cosmos hub track and have it be a consumer chain, the actual consumer chain, like, you don't necessarily need to spend the time during the hackathon to hook it up to actually have interchain security in it, because interchain security is not really going to affect your core logic that you're writing. So I think we will certainly be open to submissions that may not have the interchain security module actually in it, as long as you're planning to use it and have a sort of a good, have a good reason that it's being used. I think that's okay. So yeah.
There's a good question for you, Jehan. The impact of replicated security in combination with NFTs and native USDC.
Yeah, so this interesting it ties back to the Atom Economic Zone that has been talked about, and that's sort of the idea that the replicated security consumer chains, or what are you calling it, Atom zones? I kind of like that better. Consumer chains always been very dry, very dry technical term. Yes, but yeah. So the replicated security Atom zones, or AKA replicated security consumer chains, kind of a mouthful. They're a sort of a curated. They have to pass governance. They're curated. They all have the exact same security. So they're different sovereign projects, but they also have sort of a tie-in. They're like, they're sort of an Atom Economic Zone. So I think that with native USDC, obviously the Noble project has been considering using interchain security for a long time. And I think they're waiting to see how some of these other launches go, which is fair. But basically, I think that there's definitely a lot of overlap where people could explore the area of having like NFT, NFT contracts or marketplaces or what have you, whatever they're building that are kind of built to sort of like have USDC as like a first-class citizen, like basically like that's what the prices are quoted in or whatever. And that might also be something like where if you are doing something that's more focused, and let's say someone was doing a project that was more focused on like the real world NFT uses, like you can buy a piece of property or a piece of network equipment, on as an NFT. That's where having that USDC tie-in might actually kind of make it like more approachable to the type of people who are involved in those industries, because it's something they're used to, dollars, and cents. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the bottlenecks probably for tokenization of real estate and any like actual real world physical asset. I think the main bottleneck there is also regulation and all these kind of uncertainties. But I think that's also going to bring a lot of liquidity into the NFT space. And yeah, I think we talked about this a lot, but Cosmos just has this strong focus on UI. It has a lot of these technical benefits that Ethereum right now doesn't have, which is, for example, it's much faster, it's much cheaper also to use and transact, and it's interoperable. So I think those are killer combinations. Sitla and Mike, question for you, maybe Sitla start. Like, what is your call to action? What are some of the things that people can apply, get involved, and contribute to the ongoing game of NFTs?
Yeah, of course, go through the challenges, the sources, specifically with respect to Omniflix. It should not be the marketplace, an interchain NFT marketplace. But other than that, we are considering submissions across categories, and this is something that we are also looking at. We are also exploring, and if they say let's build the Atom Economic Zone, we say let's build the Atom Cultural Zone. So I think Mike and all of us can agree on that. to make sure this is a step in that direction. And any infrastructure that is, that is like, media is also like a place to play around with AI first, and then AI is utilized across like multiple categories and so on and so forth. So this is a playground, and this is a way for people to experiment as well, with respect to culture, and then move on to real world use cases. And final point, when it comes to the game of NFTs, like hack your way to experiment, and that will lead to a lot of interesting, you might never know where you will find interest in, where people might find interest in. And exposing yourself, like talking more about it on Twitter, is something that I personally believe will be much more effective as a builder, as a participant, right? And finally, like someone was talking about on Twitter about Cosmos not having this NFT, culture, or being able to like promote the one NFT, collection that represents us and so on and so forth. Cosmos in general is like low on speculation. They're extremely high on utility, and people like care much deeper about the technical architecture and the way it functions and so on and so forth. So like be a bit more open, and about all of these pieces of infrastructure, because you never know where the next, say, utility to onboard the next billion people into the ecosystem might come from. So yeah.
Mike, final words from your side?
Yeah, so we got those 3 challenges. They're posted. The first one is for Gravity Bridge Ethereum transfer. That's pretty interesting because obviously we want to connect to other ecosystems. The second one we have for the entry and exit tax incentives. So getting an incentive for an NFT to come to Stargaze and a tax to leave Stargaze. And then the third one that we just posted, and I think this one's pretty interesting, is we'd like to see someone build a UI for ICS-721 and make it as simple as possible. So just kind of like, here, I want to take this NFT A and I just want to move it to this chain, maybe just like 2-3 buttons. And we'd really love to see people, because we always hear about these hackathons and it's all like CLIs and kind of contract stuff, but just something that's just aesthetic and aesthetically pleasing would be really nice to see come out of this, because we want we want to ship and we want to put it in the user's hands.
So Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos NFTs are coming for you. We're almost there. But yeah, this was really cool. Thank you so much also for all the questions. I also see Unify was there. They're also building, I think, this convergence of NFTs and DeFi, which is really cool. NFT Fi, I guess. But yeah, thank you so much. This was cool. I dropped the link in the chat box for people to apply and learn more about the tracks and how to get involved. And yeah, looking forward to what comes out of it. So yeah, thanks everybody, and see you guys soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.